Hey DMs, I have a question for you. Is there something that you can't resist putting into your campaigns? If so, let us know in the comments below. I've somehow shoehorned a pair of plane-hopping, traveling bearfolk merchants from a realm called Bavaria, which is essentially magical bear Germany, into every campaign I've ever DM'd. They only sell faulty magical equipment, and somehow my players still keep buying from them. Pickles. Pickle barrels, I hide contraband in them, extra healing potions, magic items, maps, scrolls, you name it. In the years I've been DMing, none of my players have opened one or caught on. They just say, "Oh, there's that pickle dwarf making some deliveries." Goro Bash brand soap. I had a player in Pathfinder 1st Edition game who deliberately went out of his way to aggressively corner the soap market with his barbarian to generate a constant stream of funds.
Goro Bash's lavender-scented soap slays bad scents, as well as I slay monsters. Ha 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 ha.
He made a killing. I include it in all my games now. My go-to friendly priest for emergency healing or resurrection, and for supportive play, is always a kind older human named Brother Abram. I rolled him up to round out a smaller party for a one-shot a long time ago and played him as almost exclusively focused on healing and buffing. So, he's my #1 DMPC for helping the party stay alive without overshadowing them. The exact clergy to which he belongs changes based on the pantheon of the world we're playing in. And his backstory isn't always the same, except for a few key events. Typically, he was a soldier in his youth. His wife recently passed away of natural causes, and he's been heavily involved in church work and mentorship to manage his grief. But one thing is always true. No matter how grim-dark the campaign is, or how corrupt the churches are, Brother Abram is always trustworthy and helpful toward good-aligned folk. If I ever run an evil campaign someday, he'll show up as an enemy. My players would freak out. Meepo. The first time I ran Tales from the Yawning Portal, my party fell in love with Meepo, the kobold listed in there. Now Meepo died a pretty horrific death, so my players were a little shocked to see him in the next campaign, even more so when he seemed to remember the players. I had to explain to them that Meepo remembers the players, not the characters. I told them that Meepo was cursed with a form of immortality, reincarnating into other worlds each time his physical form was destroyed. Immortality, not invincibility. What I didn't tell them was that every time Meepo is killed, he comes back one level stronger. He's currently level 7. Once he hits level 30 or so, he's going to become a villain and turn on the party for all the cruel indifference they've shown him. So far, Meepo has been impaled on spikes after being strapped to one of the party's member shields, tossed into a deep pit to check its depth, sacrificed to a vampire, and worst of all, tied to the end of a 10-foot pole and forced down hallways to trigger traps. The worst incident involved a sphere of annihilation, where they only put him halfway through and watched him bleed out while his entrails spilled from his abdomen. Tell me this little bastard doesn't have a right to be pissed. Also, your players are cruel and sadistic individuals who I dislike immensely. Magical Sentient Pangolins. 3 brothers. I originally created them as support NPCs for a group that was paranoid about humanoid NPCs. The group loved them so much that in subsequent campaigns, I had to at least include them as a cameo. Otherwise, they would pester me about where the magic brie was. I have a reoccurring character inspired by Terry Pratchett's CMOT, Cut Me Own Throat Dibler, a traveling food cart salesman known for making questionable deals at supposedly low prices. In the Discworld universe, there are variations like Disembowel Meself Honorably Diblah and Swallow Me Own Blow Dart, Dlang Dlang, all of whom act as dodgy characters doing anything for a sale. I'm so in love with these names. In my universe, however, they have similarly themed names and sell extremely suspect meat options that usually require Constitution saving throws. Now, on occasion, they also provide valuable information about new towns or cities. Once, they even showed up in an alternate plane where they sold magical items. If there's ever a quiet street that needs a change of pace, a Dibler will appear, probably via L-Space. My Homebrew Continent. I haven't deviated far from it in any of my campaigns. The premise is always that a large conglomerate trading company is colonizing this mysterious continent, and every new campaign and side campaign are just different entry points into the continent. It always works because almost anyone could have had a valid reason for signing up and traveling there with the company. I have a Jamaican Genie who shows up anytime a genie is called for. Probably 20 years ago, my friend ran a session, since I usually DM, and introduced a genie. He gave the genie an accent that wasn't meant to be Jamaican, but sounded like a bad Jamaican impression. Oh god. Since then, all genies in my games speak with a terrible Jamaican accent. The table always roars with laughter. I would be doing that too much and people would get irritated. I do this as a player. Most of my PCs for the past 6 to 7 years have had some link to Rudolph Iron Hat, a plane-shifting halfling fencing instructor. He frequently has to flee cities and the employ of nobles due to his habit of seducing their wives and insisting on fighting duels naked. Despite one DM's attempt to kill him off, he remains out there seducing and fencing his way through the multiverse, thus proving this DM is more Benetti than Thibault. I had an NPC from the first time I ran a game. His name was Benjamin, and he owned a general store in Waterdeep that also happened to sell magic beans. You wouldn't know what they did until you ate one. My players were all new, and I thought it would be fun to give them something that was essentially an edible wild magic surge. Well, that group dissolved, but I loved that character so much that I brought him into my new group. This time, he was a store owner in a western town under attack by vampires. He was killed to send a message, but he was brought back to life via player choices, arcana, religion checks to become a spirit of vengeance, taking off into the desert Ghost Rider style, baby. Next up was a satanic panic witchcraft story in a New England town stuck in the 1980s. He operated a store in the mall that specialized in selling coffee beans. By the end of the game, the group had rallied around him to become the mayor after it was revealed the current mayor was involved in a deal with the devil. Finally, in our third campaign, set in a world based around holidays, I made him the big bad evil guy. Orphaned and left to rot in an orphanage run by an evil woman, every chance he had was ripped away from him. Finally, he thought he was better off going into Hallows Thicket to die, but a voice called out to him. He became a warlock of the Sugar Plum Fairy. Through a series of events, he came into possession of a crystalline dagger made of space and time. His plan was to go to the other side of the world, a flat disc-like planet, and tear apart the multiverse using the pocket of energy on the underside. Now, his reasoning was that at some point in some universe he could have been happy. He just had to find it. My players took him down but didn't kill him. Our sorcerer, who happened to be his aunt and the daughter of Baba Yaga, threw him into the tear in space and time, wiping him from every universe. I narrated them seeing him disappear in different realities, including the games we had played before. It was a nice sunset to the character, as the campaign we're in now is much more in-depth and serious. I have an unnamed island floating in a mini-dimension that was created when I needed to run some filler after a few people couldn't show up one week. A teleport spell went wrong and poof! They landed there. Since then, it has shown up in every campaign at various points in its 10,000-year history. Occasionally, I hint at what happened previously. Almost none of my campaigns share many players, so this is entirely for me. Michael and Sarah, a married couple who happen to be werewolves. I often use them as an encounter when a group is traveling near the end of the day. Sarah always plays the damsel in distress running, in human form, from the scary wolf Michael, when the characters are nearby begging them to save her. Michael, in werewolf form, fights for a round or two, then flees. At which point Sarah thanks the heroes for saving her and asks them to escort her home, a distance far enough that they'll have to make camp for the night before they arrive. Sarah offers to help around the camp with cooking, setting up tents and other tasks, explaining that it's the least she can do after the heroes saved her. During the night, she tries to silently take out the character on night watch, with Michael lurking nearby to help her. The characters wake up to a very unpleasant surprise, potentially even poisoned if they ate her cooking. The werewolves are cowards at heart and will flee if badly hurt. However, they are memorable, and it's great to have them show up again later in the campaign, maybe in town where a character recognizes them but can't attack them due to social situations. Or sometimes, Michael and Sarah come to the characters later in need of real help due to something worse than themselves, delivering key plot points to the players who want the info but don't know if they can trust the source. I've been using Michael and Sarah since the late 80s. It's pretty good fun. The Green Scale. A store where PCs can purchase low-level magical items outright, or the store can act as a broker for higher-level magic items. For the latter, the players put down a certain amount of coin and request an item, either specific or general. After an appropriate amount of days, the shopkeeper, always a goblin by the way, will have the item available. If the player simply requests a bow or a sword, I offer 3 homebrewed choices within their budget. If they ask for something specific, well, I offer that. It should be noted that items bought this way are less potent compared to items they can find the normal way, i.e. steal, but the players know this and use the green scale to fill certain niches. It started as a throwaway idea, but my players loved it so much that there is now a series of scandalous romance novels by an author named P.J. Topaz. God, no one knows anything about them, and in fact, no one is even sure where the novels come from. They just appear in bookstores and libraries. However, they're extremely popular, and publishers will buy originals to make copies and sell on their own. One of my PCs has 3 books: Dwarves in Lust, Human Conditions, and let's not forget the extra spicy, The Dragon's Choice. Mwah. Bingles, Barrels, and Horseshoes. It's like the Cracker Barrel, a general store that sells all the usual adventurer goods, but specializes in barrels and horseshoes, perhaps the finest in the realms. The owner, Bingle, will not hesitate to try and sell you a barrel or horseshoe, and might even desperately bundle one with the rest of your actual purchase, if the endless coupons and discounts only for barrels and or horseshoes didn't already entice you. My old DM used to do this with seemingly every merchant we encountered, claiming it sped up shopping sessions. I've since continued the gag in my own campaigns. Hey everybody, Brian Von VA checking in after the vid. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe, ring that bell, and if you ever want to put food in our bellies, join our membership to get early access to videos and maybe some outtakes. Trust me, I may be a professional voice actor, but sometimes even I don't recognize certain words. That being said, we love you all. Please be safe, happy, and healthy. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.